Welcome. It's Kevin Sudbeck, Chief Safety Officer for S3 Consultants, and today we're going to talk about OSHA and its application with aircraft and working at heights. So let's get going. So one of the things we have to understand is the FAA OSHA Memorandum of Understanding. In 2014, the FAA and OSHA developed a Memorandum of Understanding to facilitate, coordinate, and cooperate such that certain OSHA standards applies to employees of the aircraft company in the operating aircraft. The MOU authorized OSHA to apply some of the occupational work standards of its occupational safety program to aircraft. Normally, you can't have two agencies having the same jurisdiction at the same time. So for the FAA, they have jurisdiction of the aircraft when it's in operation. However, they have ceded three standards to occupational safety or OSHA, and those three are hazard communication, bloodborne pathogens exposure, and occupational noise exposure. And this was an outcome of the flight attendants union seeking assistance. The FAA continues to exercise its statutory authority over all other working conditions of employees when the aircraft is in operation. Now, one of the areas that is not covered as part of this sharing of jurisdiction is fall protection and the FAA. So, in the aviation industry, OSHA mandates fall protections for workers exposed to heights of 4 feet or more, and it varies by state, but generally speaking. However, when the aircraft is in operation, as defined by the FAA in your certificates accepted manual, normally when you begin pre-flight and when you end post-flight. What we always tell people is when the anti-smash comes on and when the anti-smash comes off. So the FAA regulations take precedent over that. And you may see in some aircraft, when the aircraft's in operation, people climbing up the side of the aircraft without fall protection equipment or meeting the fall protection standard. That's because OSHA's jurisdiction no longer exists at that time because the FAA's jurisdiction has come into effect. So, however, your insurance company may mandate separate things. So you may want to check with your insurance company on what they will cover. So, very important item that you should consider. With the FAA protection and OSHA, the aviation industry OSHA mandates again fall protection for workers exposed to heights of 4 feet or more. The FAA, for its employees, has its own fall protection program, but not for the people they regulate. So if you have a certificate, they don't regulate that. And OSHA's regulations around fall protection can be found in 29 CFR Parts 1910 1923. And what are the elements of a fall protection program? The fall protection trigger height, fall arrest prevention systems, PPE, and training. Fall protection and OSHA. How to protect your employees and comply with OSHA regulations outside of aircraft operations. Fall protection trigger heights. OSHA general industry standards require fall protection for any elevated walking, working surface 4 feet or more above a lower level. So for helicopters or fixed wing aircraft, this really applies to aircraft like the Chinook, or fixed wing aircraft that are taller where you're above 4 feet, like if you're walking on a wing, or if you're walking on top of the Chinook, then and the aircraft is not in operation, then you have to have some type of fall protection program. Now, use of a step ladder can get you around some of that stuff. For example, if you have an A-Star type aircraft and you need to get something at the top of the tail boom, you can use a step ladder to do that, and it kind of is a workaround for the fall protection. But always check with your local state regulatory authority and confirm with them. You can always get a consult to have them come over and check out your setup so they can let you know exactly what is required of you. I'm just speaking in general terms. For example, you have a Chinook, you will need a fall arrest and protective system or preventive system. Personal fall arrest systems, including harnesses, lanyards, anchors, are used to arrest falls in situation, and fall protection systems like guardrails or other engineering solutions. PPE, personal protective equipment, you should have a helmet. When I was at the previous employment, we mandated a helmet, and that saved lives. There is documented instances where the helmet saved a life in a fall protection situation. And training. You must always complete the training and before an employee is expected to don a harness or any other specialized equipment and perform work. New training must also be completed if the employer believes an employee does not have appropriate understanding or there's changes in the workplace, equipment, or systems. So in summary, some sections of OSHA 1910 and 1926 apply to the aviation industry when the aircraft is not in operation. Generally, when talking about support activities, maintenance activities, washing, inspection, things like that. Consult qualified people as defined by OSHA when designing specific fall protection systems for your workplace. Having a competent person to implement your fall protection program is vital. That's going to take some training and it's usually a maintenance person because the pilot's considered more under FAA regulatory purview. Now, maintenance is too, but maintenance is where the blend or the Venn diagram of OSHA and FAA really gets blended. If you have any questions, contact us at S3 Consultants. Let us help you make your system safer. We have many people on staff who are subject matter expert that are competent people that have been to the necessary schooling as it relates to OSHA. And if you have a YouTube account, like and subscribe. It allows the content to keep coming for free. And this is Kevin Sudbeck, Chief Safety Officer for S3 Consultants. Let us help you make a safer system.